The wait is almost over for the second test match between the All Blacks and the Springboks here in Wellington. In today's video, I'm going to break down exactly what I saw at the Springbok captain's run this morning. I'm also going to combine the 23s, the All Blacks and the Springboks combined best 23 for the match day tomorrow. And I think that's going to give us a little bit of perspective on how these teams line up against each other and who actually, in my opinion, has the better 23. If you're new around here, please hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to bring you guys the best Springbok content possible, and we're on the road to 100,000 subscribers. Leave this video a like, and as always, drop your opinions down in the comments. So we're in Wellington, and we went to the Springbok captain's run this morning. Now, Wellington is a bit of a hoodoo venue for the All Blacks. Their record isn't great here. We come from Eden Park, where now they're 51 games unbeaten, 31 years, and we come to Wellington, where the Springboks actually are unbeaten against the All Blacks in the last two games. In 2018, they beat the All Blacks 36-34, and in 2019, they drew the game 16-all. So history says that this is going to be a tight game, but we know what the All Blacks can do. We saw it last week, but we also know that between these two sides, doesn't really matter who's on the field. It's almost always a close game. There is some expected rain and wind for tomorrow. So how that's going to affect this running rugby, this new generation backline that Rassie Erasmus has picked, we're going to have to wait and see. But I did notice a couple of interesting things at the captain's run, and we'll play some of that footage. But I was watching the hookers warm up and throw into the line-out, and it was Malcolm Marx, as you would expect. It was Marnus van der Merwe, as you would expect, who's on the bench. It was Jan-Hendrik Wessels, as you would expect, who can play prop or hooker. But there was one more person practicing their line-out throws who wasn't practicing last week at the captain's run before Eden Park. And that man's name is Thomas du Toit. And I watched him for about 10 minutes. And to be honest, Thomas du Toit didn't miss the target for the entire 10 minutes that I was watching them throw balls into the lineout. So, with our lineout issues, I mean 69% success rate in the lineouts against Australia in the first test. Yes, we rectified it in the second with 100%. Last week we saw the All Blacks put the Springboks under a lot of pressure at lineout time, so much so that they only won 78% of their lineouts. I think if Malcolm Marx is struggling with the lineouts, Thomas du Toit is going to step in and take charge of throwing the ball into the lineout while he's on the pitch. Just something interesting I noted. Also watched Kanan Moody, Sasha Feinberg Ngumazulu, and Damian Willemse sort of run out to the pitch together. And realizing that that is our 10, 12, and 13 for this weekend made me really, really excited. All three extremely young. Damian Willemse being the oldest, who's 27. Sasha and Kanan are still in their early 20s. And I think they're going to go out there and try and express themselves. Damian Willemse said in a press conference that expressing themselves doesn't necessarily mean running, attacking rugby. There's other ways that they can express themselves. But I do think we're going to see some magic from those three against the All Blacks. Because one positive about this lineup and this new generation backline is that the All Blacks have never played against these guys in these positions. They've probably not played against Sasha too much. Yes, Sasha played last year in 2 tests. They wouldn't have played against Damian too much. Kanan Moody, they definitely haven't played much against. Ethan Hooker, they definitely wouldn't have played much against. So I don't know if they have too much experience playing these guys. Obviously, they watch a lot of tape and they would have done their homework on them. But they can't do their homework on them if they haven't played together in those combinations. Now, Sasha and Damian have played 10 and 12 at the Stormers together a little bit. But then you add in Kanan Moody at outside centre, you add Kobus Reinach at 9, you add Apelele Fassi at 15, Chezi on the wing, and all of a sudden it's a Springbok backline that we've never seen take the field. So I think that is a positive, and maybe they can catch the All Blacks napping just a little bit. Now, I want to go into this combined 23. Now, this is only my opinion. You guys might have differing opinions depending if you support the All Blacks or the Springboks, or if you just flat out disagree with me. So let me know down in the comments. This is meant to be a little bit of fun, a little bit of banter to kind of see who would make a combined 23 of the matchday sides for tomorrow. Now, what I'm basing this on is form. Who do we want playing in this combined 23 tomorrow in Wellington? Who are the most informed, trustworthy players to play? So starting off, we've got Oxencher taking on Ethan de Groot. We're going to be picking Ox absolutely all day. Malcolm Marx versus Samisoni. Look, I think even though Malcolm Marx isn't in great form, you have to pick Malcolm Marx just because of what he can deliver to you on that field. Thomas Atoy and Tyrell Lomax. I'm going to go for Thomas Atoy. I think he's probably been one of the most informed props over the past 2 seasons across the world. So it's no surprise that I'm picking a fully Springbok front row. We then go into the lock department. Lood de Jager coming up against Scott Barrett. I think we cannot be picking Lood de Jager here against Scott Barrett. Scott Barrett is the captain of the All Blacks. There's a reason for that. Him and Tupavai really disrupted the Springbok line-out last week, and they were big ball carriers. So I'm going to pick Scott Barrett. And in that 5 slot, I know Ruan Nokia is in some pretty good form, but I just think Tupavai and Scott Barrett as a lock partnership is going to give you better results. So I'm going to go with both All Blacks in the lock department. Now, into the loosies, and this is where it gets very interesting, and there might be some different opinions here. Siya Kolisi or Simon Parker. I think you have to pick Siya Kolisi on form, in that 6th position, on experience, on captaincy, on everything. 7. Pieter-Steph du Toit or Ardie Savea. Now, that's probably the most difficult choice out of the whole 23, in my opinion. Look, Pieter-Steph du Toit on his day is unplayable. The problem is, so is Ardie Savea on his day. And if we're going on form, Ardie Savea definitely outplayed Pieter-Steph du Toit last weekend. And I think I'm going to have to go with Ardie Savea in that number 7 jersey. Now, there's going to be a lot of Springbok supporters, of South Africans, who are going to be quite upset with me for that, because Pieter-Steph du Toit probably is one of, if not the best player in the world. But on form, what we saw from Ardie Savea last week, we're going to have to pick Ardie Savea. Into that 8, Jasper Visser or Wallace Satiti. And I'm going to break my own rule here on form, because I think Jasper Visser is a couple levels above Wallace Satiti at the moment. Wallace Satiti is a freak athlete, and I think in a couple of years we might be having a different conversation, but I'm going to go for Jasper Visser. Then into the backline. This is where it gets interesting, because you've got this new generation Springbok backline coming up against this pretty experienced All Blacks backline with a couple of new guys. So Kobus Reinach or Noah Hotham. I'm going to have to go for Kobus Reinach. We haven't seen enough of Noah, and I just think in terms of that experience, in terms of game time, in terms of form, you've got to pick Kobus Reinach. 10, Sasha Feinberg Ngumazulu or Beauden Barrett. Now, I'm very tempted to pick Sasha here, but you have to pick Beauden Barrett. On form, on experience, on marshalling the backline, I think Beauden Barrett edges Sasha Feinberg Ngumazulu there. Number 11, Ethan Hooker or Leroy Carter. Now, Leroy Carter is making his debut for the All Blacks. Ethan Hooker, I think this is his 3rd cap for the Springboks. So it's, I mean, you could pick either one. I'd rather pick Ethan Hooker. I know a little bit more about him. I know how good he is under the high ball. I know how good he is physically, defensively, and attacking. So I'm going to pick Ethan Hooker. In that 12, Damian Willemse and Jordy Barrett. This is the first time Damian Willemse is starting in that 12 jersey for the Springboks. He has shifted into that position later on in the game, but you got to pick Jordy Barrett. Probably the best inside centre in the world at the moment. 13, Canan Moodie or Billy Proctor. Canan Moodie hasn't often played 13 for the Bulls, never mind the Springboks. Billy Proctor, not that experienced as a Lukhanyo but I think we have to go Billy Proctor here just because Canan hasn't really been playing in that 13 role. 14, also a big decision, Cheslin Kolbe or Will Jordan. Cheslin Kolbe. I would have loved to have Will Jordan in this team because I think he's a phenomenal rugby player. But coming up against Cheslin Kolbe, who is the best winger in the world, we have to pick Cheslin Kolbe every single time. 15 is an interesting one. Apelele Fassi or Damian McKenzie. Now, Apelele Fassi, Airway Fassi Airways, it's tough because he has been in decent form, but I think we have to go for Damian McKenzie. Damian just brings, I think, a little bit more to the game, can shift into that 10 position alongside Beauden Barrett. He has a lot of experience, he's got X factor, and he can change the game. I'm not saying Apelele Fassi can't, I just think we have to go for Damian McKenzie in that 15 jersey. Then I'm going to roll through the bench quite quickly because I think there would have been quite a lot of debate over the first 15. Now we get into the bench, and I think it's a little bit more cut and dry. Replacement hooker, I'm going for Marnus van der Merwe over Brodie McAllister. I'm not going for Jan-Hendrik Wessels. I'm going for Tamati Williams over Jan-Hendrik Wessels. I'm going for Volkolo over Fletcher Newell. I'm going for Archie Snyman over Fabian Holland. I'm going for Quagga Smith over Duplessis Karifi. Grant Williams and Finlay Christie is a big debate, but I think on form, Finlay Christie was absolutely phenomenal last week at Eden Park, so we have to pick Finlay Christie. Marnie Lebok or Ruben Love. Ruben Love is quite new to the All Black setup, so I'm going to have to go with Marnie Lebok there. And then Andre Esterhuizen and Quinn Tupaya. I'm going to have to go for Andre Esterhuizen, which means The tally of who's in that starting 23 is 14 Springboks to 9 All Blacks. Now, I think this is a good exercise to do because we can see the quality on both sides. Some people might have it 13-10 or 12-11 or maybe a few more Springboks and a few less All Blacks. But I think from an objective point of view, that is a pretty well-balanced 23. And I think, let me know in the comments, but I don't think I would change too much about that. Now, you can pick individual players, but what rugby comes down to is combinations. We haven't seen the combinations of Sasha, Damien, and Kanan Moody. We have seen the combinations of Beauden Barrett, Geordie Barrett, and Billy Proctor. So it's going to be a very interesting game. I think the All Blacks could run away with it. I think the Springboks could win by 14 points. I think it could be a draw. I don't know which way this is going to go. It all hangs on how the Springbok backline performs, if they can defend well against the New Zealand backline, if they can break open a couple of holes, and if they can keep their heads in the game long enough. Let me know your guys' predictions down in the comments below. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, it's game day tomorrow. I'll see you guys then. Take it easy. Peace.